Loree's Birthday Bash at Spago's 1996 to 1997. That's the title of the chapter from my book, The Forbidden Abyss. Early 1996, Gail mentioned Jack Chick's book Smokescreens to Brent on her wiretap phone. She discussed how this book exposed the Jesuit order of the Roman Catholic Church and their involvement in the Nazi Holocaust. Brent decided to go ahead and look this book up to get more information about what was going on with Loree. He ordered this book from Jack Chick and saw the same concentration camp photos in them that Loree had showed him in 1993, the same photos that kept him up all night crying, when he was terrified over what Loree might do to Gail. Oh my God, he thought, this Loree was not kidding when she said she was a Jesuit. This is more than just a Paramount conspiracy. I better do exactly what this bitch wants, because it appears this Jesuit order is a very powerful organization. It seemed the more disgusted he got about her, the more the Jesuits created photographs of him with Loree, making them appear to attend functions together. Loree and her two dogs had managed to move into Brent's house in the spring of 1996. She somehow always got a copy of his keys and just moved herself and her dogs in. It was all a part of her plan, because if he didn't let her move in, she would kill Gail. Once she moved in, Brent had to bolt his bedroom door every night. Now moved into his house, Loree attacked Brent often, especially whenever she caught Brent talking to Gail on the phone, because he sometimes impersonated another person to talk to Gail on the phone. Brent's impersonations were so brilliant that Gail did not know it was Brent speaking to her when she picked up the phone and thought it a wrong number. Though he let Loree live in his house, he refused to let her sleep in his bed. She slept in her own room. Every morning he'd wake up and check his body and sheets to make sure nothing happened during the night. It would be hard to get out of bed because he'd be very sleepy from having slept lightly and awakening every few hours to make sure she wasn't in the room. He then checked his cameras, which rolled during the night while he slept, to see if she managed to break into his bedroom somehow and do something to him. If there was no evidence, he'd reset the cameras to film his bedroom again. After donning his electrified chastity belt, he would ease open his bedroom door, dead-bolted behind him, so she couldn't sneak into his bedroom while he was gone. Then, not knowing what lay beyond his bedroom door, his heart palpitated as he descended the stairs. She had whacked him with the butt of a gun and with frying pans and baseball bats several times, so he began wearing bulletproof vests and football helmets every time he ventured outside of his bedroom. He always wore his chastity belt that covered his genitals. It would electrify Loree if she tried to rape him. To ensure that she couldn't put him on her brain control drugs, he never ate any food from the house. He got a lot of fast food mostly, or went out to eat. Sometimes it wasn't very healthy, but at least it didn't have brain control drugs in it. Now that she had officially moved in, she upped her game. One day she put a gun to Brent's back, shoving the barrel into his back so hard that she gave him a bruise, then led him down to his basement door and tied him up. Flinging open the basement door, she flung him down the steps, his body flying down the steps. She left him there at the bottom of the steps and took off. Brent had no idea where she was going. It was the day of her birthday, June 26, 1996. With him tied up, she went for his credit cards, then called all of their friends and relatives and gave herself a big birthday bash on June 26, 1996. Using her contacts in the media, Loree published a lie in the paper that Brent sponsored the party for her. That's the day Gail learned about Loree, when she read about the bash in the Houston Chronicle. Brent Spiner hosted a huge birthday dinner for his girlfriend Loree McBride at Spago's in Los Angeles, and boy, was it some celebration. The food was great, Sylvia said about her son. She had just returned from a trip out to Los Angeles to visit her son Brent, who plays Data in Star Trek: The Next Generation. However, this was a strange birthday bash that Brent gave for his girlfriend, Loree, because Brent, tied up with ropes in his basement, wasn't invited. Brent struggled with the ropes the whole time she was gone, but to no avail. When she descended to the basement, his heart raced. He hoped she had not found some syringes to inject brain control drugs into him while she went out. I tell you what, I'm a nice girl and will let you go. She began to loosen the ropes from off of him. She smirked at him, knowing that Gail had just read the Houston Chronicle and was crying her eyes out right now. Brent never called Gail on her birthday or major holidays anymore. Loree stopped that after she raped Brent in September 1992, so Loree knew this would really sting. With her hands on her hips, she smiled. Your Gail finally knows about your girlfriend. She read about me in the Houston Chronicle. Loree laughed and dragged him to the room where she often slept, pounced onto her bed, and jumped up and down on it, swinging a dildo. It's party time! She handed him the machine, a receiver he used to listen to her talk from her wiretap phone. It was like a little speaker where he had volume control and could even listen to Gail with headphones or earpieces. His face fell when he heard Gail wailing as if her life was at an end on his receiver. Oh, Brent, why do you have a girlfriend? How could you do this to me? Then came a long wail, sniffles, until her voice sounded muffled and raspy. I've risked the streets to communicate with you. You know my husband would divorce me because I continue to communicate with you against his wishes. And now I realize that I've risked the streets for you for nothing. Because of your girlfriend. If my husband kicks me out on the streets because I have disobeyed him to communicate with you, I'll be homeless. Gail read to him over and over what she had read in the Houston Chronicle, that he had sponsored a big birthday bash for Loree McBride as his girlfriend. What birthday bash is she talking about? Loree shoved the paper into his face and pointed at the snippet that described the bash. Right there. With any luck, this article might make her so miserable she might kill herself. Then I'll have you all to myself. So thrilled over her conquest, Loree swung the dildo all night, jumping up and down on her bed. Brent never could bear to bring his Gail any pain. After listening to Gail cry for hours, he laid down an ultimatum with Loree. I'm going to make a public statement that I did not sponsor this bash. This is outrageous. I would never do this to my Gail. Brent fought back tears as he listened to Gail wailing on his receiver. Loree laughed so loud the walls almost shook. Oh, I wouldn't do that if I was you. You paid for it with your credit cards. What? Oh, yeah. It was so much fun. Everybody was there, except you, of course. Almost like a big wedding reception. He called his credit card company. Hey, can you tell me what charges were made to my account in the past week? So he rolled his eyes when he read for himself in the Houston Chronicle that he had apparently thrown her a birthday bash. He was infuriated that she racked up about $20,000 in debt on his credit cards for a birthday bash that devastated the woman he would die for. Gail read the Houston Chronicle every day when she lived in Texas, 1994 to 1997, to learn anything and everything about her Brent, because his mother lived in Houston then. When Gail read a comment supposedly by his mother on June 26, 1996, alleging that Brent hosted a big birthday bash for his girlfriend at Spago's in Los Angeles, she cried for a month. Loree nudged up to Brent. I expect you to make some television appearances now and talk about me in your television interviews. Make sure to mention my 2 dogs roaming about your house. I'm getting sick of everybody asking whether I am your girlfriend. People question the articles I've published that state we are a couple. I want you to tell the world we are a couple. Brent stared at her in disgust. I really hate you. I think I've had enough of this crap. I'm not playing your game anymore. He wished so bad he could call up Gail and explain everything to her, but still felt unsure that Gail would believe him because he couldn't even convince Paramount about Loree. But hearing Gail crying her eyes out through his wiretap of her phone made him determined to rectify the situation. With a flip of her hair, Loree said, if you try to expose me, let me show you what I'll do to your Gail. She grabbed his arm and led him to the sofa. On the coffee table in front, she opened up a huge photo album. The first page that opened up showed a corpse with head decapitated. arms and legs ripped off and near the body. On closer inspection, he made out the face was Gail's. The Jesuits had killed a Gail look-alike, almost a clone, for the photos. Gail's genetic profile seemed resistant to cloning technology, and the best the Jesuits could do was produce temporary clones of Gail. Most clones of Gail would not submit to the Jesuits and would jump off cliffs and kill themselves rather than be a Jesuit. Perhaps the Jesuits used one of these suicides, quote unquote, and cut her up and made photos of her for Brent. He looked at Loree in rage. Did you kill Gail? But I just heard her crying on the phone. Loree smiled her venomous smile and just continued flipping through the album, showing one photo after another of a dead Gail, so mutilated he hardly recognized her. The body looked like butchered steak. Blood was spattered everywhere. In each photo, the head was decapitated and all her limbs mutilated, cut off, or missing. Loree smiled at him as she flipped each page, gloating in her power to control the famous Star Trek star. Okay, that's from you'll be kind of lost in that chapter if you haven't read what's previous, but this gives you a glimpse of my novel. And this is like the, let's see, what chapter is that? That would be, that's like the 1, 2, 3, that's the 4th chapter in the book. So. And I've got other scenes in there that are pretty graphic. The courtroom scene in the Quebec trial, I've written that, and it just comes alive because I actually go into the thoughts, what each person is thinking when they speak. And it really, I actually believe I did such a good job transcribing the Quebec courtroom scene that reading it in my book is actually more interesting than hearing it at Judge Terrence Jenkins' YouTube channel. Because some people requested it, I did a little bit more graphic scene. I read from a more graphic scene in my book. I have even more graphic scenes than this, which I'm not going to read on YouTube or they might put the video down. But I just wanted to let some readers know. Some people obviously have not read my book and they're just going by my opening scene and they think that represents the whole book. That's just an opening. I wanted to open into Brent's thoughts. And now I just read from a scene that is a scene, and I have a lot of that in this book, and that's kind of gives you an idea what the book is like. Forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, some of you requested that I make an audio book. I don't have the equipment and the money to make an audio book. I would have to invest like a couple $100 in audio equipment. I already looked into it. And as you can tell from listening to what I just read, that equipment is not going to work because it slows and it slurs and it just... I'm going to ask Brent Spiner if he can do an audio reading of the book. I don't know if he's going to be able to because he's scared to death of Loree going after me. So he may not, but maybe he can do a reading and make it available through the Gabriel Chana Fox News channel. I'll ask him next time he talks to me. He hasn't talked to me in a while, because he's taken Loree McBride to court, and apparently he can't talk to me or it might sabotage the evidence he's bringing. But I do know that he is using scenes from my book in the courtroom, so he wouldn't be able to do that unless I had some pretty graphic descriptions in there. So those of you who say my book is not graphic, you obviously haven't read it. You're just going by my opening scene. By just a couple pages after that, I start going into, I have lots of dialogue in here. My goal when I wrote this was to imitate Exodus by Leon Uris and Thornbirds by Colleen McCullough and imitate their style. So from Colleen McCullough, I'm borrowing some of the going deep into the characters' thoughts, because that can be really interesting if you have fascinating characters. And then from Exodus, I made sure to have conflict in every scene. So even Zach Knight admitted that my book's a page turner. I'm not sure what to make of that, but if Zach Knight says it, it must be so. Well, now let's see if I can get this thing. Zach Knight keeps attacking my video, and I can never get it to shut.